Ma'am, should I take over? Yes. So, hello everyone. Good evening to everyone attending this session. This is indeed the 25th session of Mellow Musings. We could also call it the silver episode of Mellow Musings. Mellow is the Society for the Study of the Multi-Ethnic Literatures of the World. It is an academic organization interested in literature, particularly in world literatures and literary connections across borders of time and space. Mellow Musings is Mellow's signature academic meet, organized fortnightly with speakers from interdisciplinary fields around the world to discuss relevant topics of literature and more. Today's speaker and moderator are familiar faces to each and every one of us and also across the academic community. I have the pleasure of introducing the author for this book discussion, Professor Manju Jaidka. Ma'am is the president of Mellow and the author of many established titles. One of them is the legend of Sanjhi Giri, on which we'll have the discussion today. Moderating the session is our dear Professor Roshan Lal Sharma. Sir is the Joint Secretary of Mello. He is a professor of English and the Dean of the School of Languages at Central University of Himachal Pradesh at Dharamshala. I would request Sir to take over the session as a moderator. Sir, please.
Thank you, Ishtiaq. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Well, I'll be engaging with Professor Manju Jaidka as a fiction writer. She, of course, is an established academic and a poet as well, and playwright also. But today we are going to be focused on her latest novel, The Legend of Sanjhi Giri. But before we start off with that conversation, I'd like to give you a brief kind of overview of Professor Jaidka as a novelist. It was in 2007 that she wrote Spots of Time. It was her first novel, and what it does is it portrays two women, namely Priyadarshini Pannu and Anamika Mehra. Their life narratives, intersect through mature flashback technique, and there are several other tangential characters, of course, who are so very important, and it's a powerful narrative. It is followed by Scandal Point, which is a historical novel. It is set in 1892, colonial India, wherein a young ruler of a princely hill state elopes with the viceroy's daughter. And that's the scandal, actually, having far reaching consequences. And it is followed in 2014 by yet another novel by Professor Jaidka, which is Amaltas Avenue. And I prefer to term it as campus novel because this actually remains, it emerges as a kind of leitmotif, and we possibly could bring it in while discussing. Followed by Gumshoe Mania, which is the story of a woman who wants to become a gumshoe. And an opportunity, in fact, comes her way uh, uh, during her middle years, and it takes her places uh, when she she has certain life-changing experiences. And then we have got this latest novel called The Legend of Sanjhi Giri, which in fact creates an ethereal kind of world, ethereal charm, around this legend called the legend, Sanchi Mai. And she actually happens to be a deity, a female deity, and who protects her folks in this little village called Ochghat. And she has that ethereal fragrance. I might possibly read a little about where it is described about Sanjigiri later. And she likes she's like that evening mist, gradually descending. And even though invisible, her presence is strongly felt all around. So broader narrative frame happens to be the story of Sanchi, Sanchi Mai. But the narrative protagonist here, whose name is Meenal, and her friend Rima, their stories also converge along with so many other characters, like we have Nikhil, Bastar, KRS, etc., who who would appear, tangential, but would serve important function in the fictional universe of the novel. So my first question quickly would be that, okay, when it comes to when we talk about legend, it's a story, and we know it's a story about historical figures. We think of myths also, again stories from the past about gods or men who are who have that, who are different from the rest, above the ordinary, and then folk tales also. uh, Again, traditional stories. uh, how did you come upon this legend, and is there anything heroic about it in the traditional sense of the term? I mean, my question, ma'am, is what exactly triggered the narrative?
The narrative. Okay. Where
Yeah,
did the legend come from?
yeah,
Roshan, first of all, I must thank you for reading the book with such insight. And I wish all writers had readers like you, because you seem to understand the nuances of the narrative and respond to it so sensitively. So thank you so much for that. And before that, introducing us was Ishtiaq. Ishtiaq also needs to be acknowledged. Ishtiaq does a lot of work for Mellow Musings. Right, coming back to your question, Roshan, where did this legend emerge from? See, Sanjhi Mai. Who is Sanjhi Mai? Sanjhi Mai is actually a fictional character who becomes, who's seen as a deity. There are roots in reality, of course, because Sanjhi is actually a goddess that is worshipped in Haryana, not in the Himachal where the story is set. But the idea of a goddess, that is prevalent all over Himachal, and you know that the state is full of gods and goddesses. Now, believing that there is a goddess looking after a village or looking after a particular place, it's nothing new, especially not in Himachal. All these places have their deities, their local deities, and some more than one sometimes, and people believe in them. There's community worship and so on. But how did these deities happen? In this case, Sanji Mai, the deity that I've created, I've just borrowed the name from the Haryanvi culture. So the deity that I've created was once upon a time a human being who has a woman who has a bad experience. And it was so bad that, when she dies, she commit suicide because she's violated by one of the VIPs in the village. So she commits suicide, and all the people realize, what has been done, and they start worshipping her. She becomes a goddess, and they feel that the goddess is actually looking after them. And the goddess ensures that there is justice, peace, and fairness, and nothing goes wrong. All evildoers are punished. Now, this motif, you find this motif in a lot of stories of goddesses, a lot of traditional stories. You find it everywhere. And there are motifs that are repeated in the stories that we love. We, as students of literature, know that there are certain patterns which are repeated over and over again. So this idea, this concept of a goddess looking down from above and managing the affairs or overseeing the affairs of a particular place, of a particular community, that is not new. The story of this goddess, when she was a woman, she was violated, that is also not new. We hear of such things happening day in and day out. And if you read the newspaper every day, there is some horror story of a woman who has been violated most of the time by somebody in power. So this is what happens. And the legend of Sanjhi Giri, that was playing in my mind for a long time. It was many years ago that I heard the story of a poor household help who was violated by a minister.
Okay, okay, okay.
who,
Right,
well,
right.
who went scot-free. Huh? And that just
Mm.
remained in my mind. It just remained in my mind. And then you hear more stories like that. So you feel that, what can you do? If you can't do anything, you write about it so that people become aware of what happens. And there is some divine justice also. Maybe justice does not really happen in real life, but in your story, in your narrative, you can
Mm.
have some kind of a nemesis. So I
Mm.
bring that element also. Okay, now, anything in particular that you want me to add, Roshan?
Yeah,
That you
yeah,
want me
yeah.
to
So so legend, of course, is the story, and
add?
as I said, heroic and Sanjhi, of course, you've raised Sanjhi to that level, of course, and it's of course fictional representation. We understand, but hers is a feat as it has been represented in the novel, which is no less heroic. We know so her prevalence, her presence, overwhelming power. It bears testimony to that effect as one reads it. But next question is,
Roshan, one
wo-
minute. When I talk about Sanjhi as a woman who becomes a goddess, I also have at the back of my mind the Greek goddess Psyche. Psyche
hmm,
is a late goddess in the pantheon of Greek
depends.
mythology. And she becomes a late goddess. She becomes a goddess only because she's gone through a lot of suffering.
Yes,
So there are parallels. There are parallels
there are.
in
Yes.
mythology across national borders. Yes,
Yeah,
please carry on.
that actually brings me to a question which is technical in the sense that the novel presents a peculiar blend of the fictional and the real, the
Mhm.
imaginative and the factual. That
Mhm.
that comes through so very clearly based
Mhm.
on the response that you came. So when it happens, in fact, so this line between the fact and the fiction, I mean, how does it all get processed in the creative consciousness, of a fiction writer? It's more technical in nature, but I think you could just kind of throw light
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that as well.
See, it's like this, Roshan, you are a writer, and you know that whatever you write, I haven't seen your fiction so far, but I have seen your poetry. Whatever you write emerges from your personal experience, right? Mm. So the personal is presented in such a way that it reaches out to people and it becomes public at some level. This doesn't happen just in my case or your case. It happens, in almost all the writers that you come across. And when I was working on the Encyclopedia of Indian Writing in English, I realized that most of the writers make use of their personal experiences, make use of their autobiography, make use of how the world has treated them, what life has given them. So they weave their stories around what they have gone through. This is what happens. So all stories have their roots in reality, but reality is treated with some imagination. It is treated, in a way that becomes like a story. So the line, but there is a line between fact and fiction, in the sense that you don't portray reality in toto. There are so many things in reality which are grotesque, which are ugly. You may not wish to include them.
No.
Instead, you may look at the story that you're presenting, the character that you're presenting, with a certain film over them, with a certain filter. And
Mm.
that filter, what filter you use, depends on your sensibility, depends on, your taste,
Mhm,
what you
mhm.
have gone through, and
Right,
so on. Yeah.
right, right, man.
It
And
is fiction. It is
yeah,
fiction. It is a story, but it has its roots in
in
reality.
reality, yes. So when I see your fictional trajectory, right from Spots of Time to Scandal Point, Amaltas Avenue, Gumshoe Mania, and this legend, the latest one, I find mellowing of your fictional idiom. So the language and the style of the telling of the tale,
Mhm.
it has undergone a very tangible, remarkable kind of shift. So this initial, I think, modernist streak now seems to have gradually given into simpler, more lucid, and if I may say so, ma'am, philosophically charged kind of, style of narration, but philosophical, not in the abstruse and obfuscating sense of the term, but it has that philosophical depth. So how would you respond to that? Would you?
It's like
Uh,
this. I've been writing fiction for about 30 years. And in 30 years, I guess everyone changes, everyone evolves. My
mm,
earlier, before 30 years, I was focused more on academic writing, publications, and so on, related to the profession. But in the late 90s, I started working on creative writing seriously. And the
mm,
earlier attempts have their flaws. They are, like all first attempts, they are what can be improved, right?
yeah,
And
right.
you have gone through spots of time.
Yeah, yeah,
You found it readable, and people who read it really liked it. But then there were flaws. And
mm,
in the next novel that I wrote, I thought I was overcoming them. And if you feel that I have evolved to some degree now, well, I'm glad, and I would say thank you very much. But I think all of us, as we grow older, we do become mellow, and our writing style, our stories also mellow down a little. However, there are certain strains that remain from the beginning to now because of what we are, because of who we are.
mm. Yeah, you know why I say so. There's a reason. There's a reason in the prologue as you read it. Just I'll just read out two, three maybe four, five of them. Uh, okay, it's they call her Sanjhi Mai. They say she still visits the place occasionally. Her spirit lingers on, unwilling to depart from the scene. It hovers unseen over the hilltop, descending from above imperceptibly whenever the west wind blows. When the evening takes on a strange purple hue and the hillside is surrounded in the ethereal, almost translucent halo, imparting a modest aura to the entire scene. No one can see her, but they can feel the change in the air, in the sudden gust of breeze that brings with it an ethereal fragrance that envelops Sanji Dhara or Sanji Dhar. I don't know how you pronounce it. But then it's not just that. How she descends is like the evening mist. It settles down on the seven hillside cottages that steadfastly weather the wind and the rain, the heat and the cold. On such occasions, when the air becomes purple and musky, this particular idiom, this fascinated me. The sky turns a shade pinker and the pine trees a deeper green, almost as though they were intoxicated with the perfume that pervades the air. I just leave it there. But I mean, not that there is a kind of dearth of such streaks of very sharp and very subtle sensibility and keen sensitivity about, say, nature or what happens all around. Uh, I mean, there is no dearth in your other novels. For example, Spots of Time also had some such sort of some such moments, such certain descriptions, and but this depth that I was alluding to. Okay, I just leave out the term philosophical here. This depth is there, something that really takes you along. Uh, so uh, if I bring in the text here, say we've got Meenal, in her email exchange with Rima, and she evidences such maturity amply, sufficiently, in the opening chapter. I mean, her emails are, well, there's this term called hyperbolic also used there, and exaggeration also used there. However, it's a different idiom that makes tremendous sense, and I can think of several such descriptions, from different literary traditions from across the world. I'm not going to bring these writers here, but you see, Jaidka, the novelist, in other words, uh, seems to be listening more sensitively to the, to the wind, to the silence and her heart. Am I right in my
You are
perception?
spot on. You are spot on. And you are from Himachal, and I think a lot of the people who have logged in are also from Himachal. And you know that such things happen in that region. I was staying in Himachal for the first time, when I first went there, and all this overpowered me. It was overwhelming. So I could really feel it, and I had to put it down somewhere in my writing. So I would tell people, I said, at night I can hear the earth breathing. I can hear
Mhm.
the earth breathing when I walk out towards the pine trees. I can hear them groaning. And they
Mhm.
really groan. When they move slowly, there is that kind
Mhm.
of a sound that they make. So you become attuned to all these sounds when you see them for the first time, when you experience them for the first time. And then the sky, of course. And then the novel is set during the COVID times. And in COVID
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
everything
yeah.
was silent. Everything was silent, and you are all by yourself. You're in the middle of nature, nature all around you, and the power of nature goes into you. You absorb it all. And when that happens, you just have to
Mm.
write about it. So you create a character who is a character who's gone the way I went, for a short spell. Not very short actually, but she goes for a short spell to the hills on an assignment and she feels all this. So whatever she's feeling is actually what I went through. So the experience of the hills, the experience of nature in the hills, that is very real. And that someone who lives there would understand and appreciate.
Yeah, it's thematically, there's a whole range of themes in the novel. One such themes which is really important is, the campus per se. So it's a campus, coming alive. And uh, and this too is, again, as I said, it's a, a motif, that's recurrent in quite a few
Mhm.
of your
Yeah,
fictional ventures, all of them barring, of course,
scandal
Scandal
point,
Point.
barring
Yeah,
scandal point. Yeah.
yes, Scandal Point, yes. So
Mhm.
uh, how do you look at the genre per se of campus novel? Moreover, most of us are aware what ails campuses, you
Mhm.
know, uh, and what ails campuses today across.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not just here, but everywhere,
Mhm.
everywhere. Now, could you respond, keeping in mind, your insightful portrayal of a campus in the legend? And I have several incidents, that you have discussed in the novel. In particular, this Viva exam that
Mhm.
takes place,
Mhm.
particularly the way KRS behaves
The
out in
PhD
PhD
Viva,
Viva,
yes.
PhD
PhD
Viva,
Viva, yeah.
that
Mhm.
takes place, and so many other aspects are there. So,
Mhm.
could you respond to that, man?
Mhm.
It's a
You will
broad kind
agree,
of.
you will
Yeah,
agree that a campus is a very happening place. All
yes,
campuses are very happening places. And some campuses are happy campuses and some are toxic. But you can still have a good time no matter what the situation is if you have the right kind of company around you, if the right kind of people, teachers, faculty, your friends, students, and so on, right? Now,
yes,
I have spent 50 years of my life teaching
yes,
in
yes,
various
yes,
institutions. And it's not surprising that my experiences should go into my work because as a woman, as a professional, as someone who had certain ambitions to get somewhere despite all odds. And we all face a lot of odds, particularly women. They have a lot of difficulties. They have to manage so many things at home, their children, their family, their in laws, their neighbors, everyone. And then to have ambitions to go ahead, it's not easy. And when you do that, then there are always obstacles that you have to overcome.
yeah,
So, all these challenges, every woman in my situation, would have a story. She may or may not wish to tell it, or she may tell it differently, but every woman has a story of how the way up was difficult, but finally she managed, or maybe she didn't. It can be a success story, it can be it can lead to nothing at all. So you are right. In most of my novels, I do have the campus. It figures somehow or the other. The first one, Spots of Time, the main protagonist is a college teacher who faces a lot of problems. She has people working against her because she is getting ahead, and others who aren't, they play up
Yeah.
against her, right? So there is that campus element there. And uh, Scandal Point, you're right, does
Yeah.
not have the campus because
Amalta
it was
Sen.
designed as a historical novel.
Historical.
It had to
Yes.
focus on one particular story,
Correct.
and that book was written in 2 months. It
Mm-hmm.
was written in 2 months. It was like I was possessed and I had to write it, because
Mm-hmm.
suddenly I said, there is something in this
Mm-hmm.
story that has to be unearthed. And those days, the internet did not have much information about the story, the background, the characters. Sometimes it had wrong information, so I just had to sift it, and wherever the gaps were, I had to fill it up with my imagination. But there is no campus there.
Mm-hmm.
Amartas Avenue, you're right. It is based on the campus, and 3 days,
Yes.
three
There's a
hot
recap.
summer days on
Mm.
the campus.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in those 3 hot summer days, everything changes. The lives of the main characters undergoes
Yeah.
a complete change. But in those 3 days, I managed to put in a lot of stories that go around in the campus.
Yeah.
The ups and downs, the politics, and so many other, the love stories, romances, all that I put
Everything.
in
Yeah.
somehow.
Full range.
Uh,
Full range.
and it spilled over to my play,
Mm.
the Seduction
Cat
and
Whiskers.
Betrayal of Cat Whiskers,
Cat Whiskers.
which
Yeah.
people found it delightful. They found
Yeah.
it delightful, those who read it. And we did perform it online once. It
Yes.
was a good success. It was a good success.
Yes.
Right. And then with The Legend of Sanjhi Giri, again,
Mhm.
I returned to the campus because I had this experience of the hills, which I
Even, excuse me,
had
ma'am,
to
even
narrate.
gumshoe. Excuse me, even
Gumshoe,
gumshoe.
yes, I forgot Gumshoe. How could I
Yeah.
forget
Gumshoe
Gumshoe?
also. Yeah.
Yes,
It has.
Gumshoe also. Incidentally, the characters of Gumshoe, the main
Yes.
characters of Gumshoe,
Yes.
they are repeated in Sanjigiri.
In
So there is
Sanjay.
a continuity. There is a
There's a
continuity in
continuity.
the two novels, not in the stories. The narratives are different, but there is a continuity.
Yeah.
And here, yes, there also in Gumshoe Mania also, there is that campus element because the main character, who is Rima there too,
Mm-hmm.
she
Mm-hmm.
is not an academician, she's a housewife who
Housewife.
wants
Yeah.
to become a detective. And she's read a lot of detective stories, and she says, how can I
Stories.
become a gumshoe? How can I become a
Yeah.
detective? And then finally, when she's middle-aged, she gets an opportunity to become a detective. Now, you youngsters who are logged in, you will
Mm.
wonder, why should a woman in her middle years become a detective? Well, a woman can love to be a detective even when she is in her 70s or 80s. Why not? Huh? The heart remains young. Dil to bacha hota hai na?
Yeah.
And in The Legend of Sanjay Giri, you have the same characters, and then but the location changes. The location
Yeah.
changes, it moves to the hills,
Yeah.
and then the COVID period begins. So
Yes.
it stretches across about 3, 4 months. 3, 4 months
Mm.
before COVID, during COVID, and just after COVID. And
Yeah.
there are these two ladies who are locked up. Not locked up, but they are on that campus.
Yeah.
What happens on the campus? There are so many things happening. All that goes into to my book, The Legend of Sanjay Giri.
Yeah. Yeah. Ma'am, another thing, I think it's
Somebody's raised a hand. Huh?
yeah, somebody has raised a hand. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead, please.
It's you, ma'am. I think
I
you raised
have
it by mistake.
Inadvertently, it's
No, I
okay.
didn't raise my hand. Lower hand. Okay.
Anyway,
But I didn't even touch it. I don't know how it happened. All right. So
Okay. All right, ma'am. So next thing is
Mm.
I mean, how does it kind of uh, sort of happen with you as a writer? Like, do you write regularly? Are you a
No,
disciplined kind of, you're not, because you
no.
said fine. At times it could happen over a
Mm.
period of 2 months and it's over.
You know,
And
when you're
yeah,
working, you don't get too much time. The stories, you are absorbing experiences which will go into a story at some time when you are ripe for it, when you are right, when the time is ripe, the right. So that meanwhile you are working, you are struggling, you have ambitions, you are going places, you're meeting people, there are people being nasty to you, there are people being nice to you. So you absorb all that, and whenever you have the time, then you write. In between also you do a bit of writing off and on. If you have some interesting experience, you must write it out. Otherwise, you'll forget about it. And write it out in your, in a way that you would love to narrate, like a story, in a very conversational tone. And then at some point, you can put them all together. And this technique, incidentally, all the youngsters who are logged in would be would benefit from this. This technique is not a new one. It has been practiced by writers earlier also. In
mm,
fact, when T.S. Eliot finally published The Wasteland,
mm,
it was not written when he was recovering in that, uh, I won't call it asylum, in that hospital in
awesome.
Switzerland. It wasn't written there, it was only put together. But
Mm,
he
mm,
had been collecting little pieces
mm,
over the years, little
mm,
sights and sounds of London, because it's all about London.
yeah,
So if you look at the the facsimile of the wasteland, you will find that there are lots of pieces written at different times, and
mm,
sometimes by different people, comment here and there. Ezra Pound, of course, but
mm,
Eliot's first wife also, she also put in a couple of lines. For instance, in one of the sections, when the when Lil when Lil's husband got demobbed, I said to her, I didn't mince my words, I said to her, get yourself some, he
mm.
gave you some money to get yourself some teeth. Why
Yeah,
didn't you
yeah,
get
yeah,
yourself some teeth? What do you get married for if you don't want children?
yeah.
This line was written by the first wife of Eliot in the facsimile.
Mm, yeah,
Now, coming back to the point, Eliot was collecting a lot of scenes, sights, situations of London,
mm,
and
mm.
finally he put them together with a theme connecting everything.
Right.
And this
Yeah.
is a method that is commonly used
Um,
because you remain very busy with your work. You may not have the time to sit down and write something at a stretch. I told you I wrote Scandal Point in 2 months, but that was when I was on study leave and
Right.
I was obsessed with the story.
Mm,
And I had
mm.
made a target for myself. So
Right.
you keep collecting little pieces and later on you can join them.
Mm,
You can
mm.
join them. You can find a common theme. After all, you're writing it. So there has to be something common running in the various stories. And
Yeah.
then you put them together. And I have done that in Spots of Time and also in Amaldas Avenue, I'm not sure.
Mm,
But even in this book, Sanjhi Giri, that
mm, mm.
episode which we mentioned just now, the PhD Viva, that
Yeah.
was written at a different time.
At
That
a
was
different.
written at a different time. And the introduction was written at a different time because I was working in two different places then. Then, when I finally hung up my boots, I
Mhm.
sat down and worked on this, and then it took a few months to put together, and it came out last year.
Yeah. Ma'am, another thing, I think I'll seek your indulgence a little bit more vis-a-vis the craft of,
Craft. Mhm.
right. As an academic, of course, you've been talking about it, teaching about it, reading about it, everything. So I'm sure it's of great help, isn't it?
It certainly is. It certainly is.
Yeah. So
Huh?
yeah, yeah.
For
You
instance,
oh,
one
go
of
ahead.
my one of my pet subjects
Mm-hmm.
in academics is narratology,
Mm-hmm. Very
and
good.
this is a subject I taught for a few years.
Right.
I wrote a book, an academic book also on
Mhm.
narratives across narratives across. I'm so sorry, I forget the names of my
Mhm.
children, I forget the names of my books. Huh? So
All right.
the idea was narratives
Mhm.
across time and space.
Mhm.
And my interest in narratology led to a focus on how stories are told and
Mhm.
how the way of telling stories may have changed, but it is still the same as it used to be.
Mhm.
So you
Mhm.
go back to the older stories, you go back to the Panchtantra, you go back to Canterbury Tales, and you find that there is a sameness. Now, studying narrative, studying narratology gave me a little insight into the structure of
Mhm.
a novel, of
Mhm.
a literary text. Even a
Mhm. Mhm.
poem, for instance, has a certain text,
Yeah,
a structure that would work well.
right.
That, and then also the narrator and the narratee. Who is the
Mhm. Mhm.
narrator and who is the narratee?
Right. Right.
That also, whose voice, whose point of view. All
Mhm.
this you are aware of when you study narratives and narratology. I'm not
Narrative.
saying that those who haven't studied cannot write well.
They
Of course,
cannot
they
be.
can write. They,
Mhm.
sometimes it is instinctive, and sometimes it is the editors who make them revise over and over again. The publishers, the editors, they make them revise over and over again. In my case, I'm fortunate I did not have to revise anything at all. Nothing, just a few typos here and there, but nothing at all. So it does help if you're a teacher, if you have a command over the language, if you have read a lot. You
Mhm.
need to read. You need to read a lot just as you need to experience the world. You know, all those experiences you have to absorb so that you can, so that they become a part of you and you can weave them into your stories. And you
Mhm.
also have to read a lot because unless you read, how will you distinguish good
Yeah.
writing from bad writing?
Right. 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 Perfect.
Yeah.
And let me get back to the thematic core of this novel, which, in my opinion, is that I thought interminable. No, that's not the right word. That eternal and endless kind of connection between the human, and the divine in the form of nature or anything that could be. So what basically reigns supreme in the novel is nature. The
Nature, nature. Yes,
message is
yes.
loud and clear.
Mhm.
And nature has its own way of setting, all the wrongs around right.
Mhm.
Okay. Be that, the fate that the serpent meets, consequent upon his,
Misdeed.
violation, yeah, violating the charm of Sanchi's or her.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we've got Bastar, yet another portrayal, important one, and his uh, eventual, I mean, what all happens when he
Mhm.
tears off his clothes,
Mhm. Mhm.
and his reference to, this time capsule and my time capsule towards the end. This is something which is really interesting. And above all, nature's green mantle is what you have brought out very, very effectively. Of course, the green mantle, after the scorching fire, everything is devastated. Everything is, you know, the entire world seems to have, reduced to ash. And
Mhm.
there, I mean, these tree trunks absolutely black all around. And so this green mantle seems to level sort of all, and it in a sense overwhelms everything around. And as I said earlier, reigning supreme finally. I mean, in the face of, as I said, the charge surrounding and the rest of that. So nature, in fact, and the green cover, this actually is so very important in the novel. So, and I can understand, the backdrop being corona, this COVID, uh, and I mean, what all it did to us, how
Mhm.
close it brought us all to nature.
Mhm.
So, how would you this karmic kind of retribution and so many other things? I mean,
Mhm.
they become really powerful there. That, I mean, nature has its own way of rectifying the wrongs, etc., etc. And human beings, of course, they are fallible, but then no evil deed or bad kind of karma is going to go
Unpunished.
unpunished.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are several strands that are woven in the novel. One is, of course, that legend, the legend of Sanjhi Giri. Along with that, parallel to that, is the woman question. You see, she's a woman who has been violated, and as a goddess, she is empowered. She's
Yeah.
empowered and she can take revenge on wrongdoers, which she
Yeah.
could not when she was alive, when she was human. Then another strand running through it is the ecology, the
Yeah.
mountains, the landscape, the greenery,
Yeah.
nature,
Yeah.
Mother Nature. So it's not just Sanji Mai, it is also Mother Nature, who is an important part of the story. And what happens is that there is a forest fire. There is a forest fire which I actually
Yeah.
witnessed, and I'd never seen a forest fire.
Yeah.
And believe me, it is horrifying. It is something that you cannot forget. In
Yeah.
fact, my collection of poems, Sulagta Sansar, it's all about the forest fire and
Yeah.
how the forest fire runs up the hills and so on. So that was another experience that I had to record somewhere. I recorded it in the poems that I wrote, in little snatches now and then,
Yeah.
and also in one chapter of this particular book.
Yeah.
So we have this forest fire, soon after the forest fire. And you know what the people say about the forest fire? They say that
This is
the
nature's way.
villagers, no, they say that villagers deliberately set fire to it
Yeah. They said fine.
because afterwards there's green grass that
There is
comes,
green
which
grass
is
that
very
comes.
good for
Yeah.
cattle, milking cattle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found that very strange. So all these ideas which I found different had
Mm.
to go into the story. And the main characters who are outsiders to this
Yeah.
particular region, they don't really understand, but they say, okay, if this is their culture, if this is what they believe in, well, that's it. We can't know much about it. So the forest fire happens, and after that, everything is green.
Green.
But
Yeah.
then what happens to the stumps, the burning stumps of trees, I have actually walked through that forest which was burned and saw those burnt stubs
Yeah.
sticking out towards the sky.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
a pathetic sight.
It
It's
is.
a pathetic sight. I did not touch anything and my hand has gone up again. I did not do it. Sorry. Okay.
Mm.
So all that goes into the story. Along with that, there's a great theft that is taking place. All
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
temples of the surrounding areas,
Surrounding
the
areas. Yeah.
statues are being stolen and they are being hidden away. And Sanji Mai or Mother Nature cannot stand
Yeah.
something that is going on, something that is so wrong.
Yeah.
So does the forest fire happen
Yeah.
because there's something wrong going on?
Yes.
Or is it just a natural event that takes place? So
Mm.
these are the silences of the text which are not explained. It's for the reader to figure out what it could
Yeah.
possibly be.
Yes, yes. And we have
Uh,
Buster and the Gang of Four, of course. They have intended something evil. And what happens, as a way of karmic retribution is towards the end, as I just read about. So, I mean, this nemesis, in fact, is felt through and through. There is not even a single strand, narrative strand that has been left unaddressed. That's what I wanted to bring here. Another thing is ending. This ending, in fact, I'm interested about it in the sense that I've read quite a few writers, I mean, who are really they're baffled vis-a-vis how to start a novel, the beginning. They say that I mean, it took so. They were ready. They had the entire content, stories, everything, characters, and all intrigues that they had to portray, and everything. The complex aspect of plot and narrative, how it had to be built or something. They say that they're not getting the cue to start it off. Once they get it and then they get going. That's what they say.
mhm,
But I mean, I'm interested vis-a-vis endings in the sense that most of your novels, they have that. It's, I mean, so. what they tell us is that, okay, fine, first of all, it's absolutely okay to accept the fact that we are human beings and we have our follies, we have our foibles, we have our weaknesses and the rest of that. So one thing is this. Another thing is that you know it in no way, this mundaneness of life in no way should discourage us, to lend that sense of meaning to our lives. This comes, but this comes very subtly. So, ma'am, elaborate upon this particular aspect of what in your mind as a novelist when you write about endings or
The endings. Now that you bring it up, I realize that the endings of all my books
hmm,
are not dramatic. It's not
then
like
then
a
yeah,
sting in the tail. Some writers are very good at it. They have a sting in the tail at the end, a surprise ending,
yeah,
which shocks everyone. Mine are not like that. They end kind of smoothly. It's like a river that flows along,
yeah,
ups and downs,
hmm,
fast or slow, and then finally, gently, it merges with the
hmm.
sea. I
All
feel
right.
that life is also like that. Life is also like that. We grow, we move, we mellow down, and finally we fade away. The story also, this particular story also, ends on that kind of a note that yes, life goes on, the legend lives on, people
Mhm,
carry
mhm,
on with their day to day affairs. This is how it is. This is how we live. There is a resignation, yes, there is an acceptance. Even
mhm,
though a lot of things happen in between.
mhm,
COVID happens, the thefts take place,
mhm.
that conspiracy, that
Yeah, is
underground,
patched.
the
Yes,
forest
yes.
fire, all that
Yeah,
happens. But
yeah,
then finally, there is this gentle mellowing,
yeah,
acceptance, resignation. It's like, the figure in the carpet that you see.
yeah.
Or it's like if you read Yeats, and I'm sure you
Mhm,
have read Yeats,
mhm,
in
mhm.
Lapis Lazuli, you have those Chinamen going on top of a hill. And
Yes.
from the hill, they look down
Yeah.
and they see a pattern out there.
Mhm.
Now, when we are in the midst of life as such, it is turbulent. There are ups and downs, there are conflicts, there are struggles, there is a lot that is happening. But when we move away, when we detach ourselves, then we can see that there is a certain rise and fall of civilizations. There is a certain rise and fall, a pattern in our lives. And that has to happen, and we have to accept it. So, most of my works do end like that. You are absolutely right. Thank you for being so
Uh,
perceptive.
yeah, it's like, I mean, you have metaphorized it wonderfully well when bring in this river metaphor to talk about it. And okay, this brings me, I think, maybe to the last question in the sense, what engages you the most off late? I mean, are you still writing something?
Yes, I am.
Is there
Yes,
some novel in the offing,
I am
poetry,
writing
play?
something. I'm writing something. But before we move on to that, maybe I can briefly mention that the story of those two women, there are lots of stories woven together in the legend of Sanjhi Giri. On the one hand, we have the two main characters, the women characters who are spending time together, locked up in a situation where they cannot get out of. That is because of the COVID virus
Oh, yes.
and the coronavirus. Then there are other characters also because no story is complete. No, you
Yeah.
see, a short story would be complete without too many characters. But when you're writing a book, when you're writing a novel, you need to create a universe, and that universe has to be peopled by different
Yeah.
types. So there
Yeah.
are different types. There is well, a gentleman who's hoping for an autumn romance,
Yeah.
and he's getting bored. He's getting bored, so he wonders what he should do about it because he has set his eyes on a young lady in the office. And
Yeah.
there is another one
Nikhil.
who has,
It's
there
Nikhil.
is no, there is another one called Nikhil
Rocky.
who has another romance. So that is
No.
another character who has another story. And then there is that evil element that comes in from outside. Again, this motif is not uncommon in storytelling, you have a particular place which is nice, peaceful. Usually in detective stories, we begin with an Edenic sort of
Yeah.
atmosphere,
Yeah.
and then there is some evil that comes in from outside. Some
Yeah.
evil comes in from outside, and that contaminates, so to speak, the place. And there is going to be something terrible
Yeah.
unless something is done. So
Something.
there are these characters who come in from outside with the intention of doing a massive robbery of all the temples around. But
Simples.
then finally, they are punished in nature's own way. No human being punishes them, but nature does.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming back to the question that you asked me, what am I working on now? I have a lot of ideas in my mind, but I have one unfinished project which I must finish, hopefully soon,
Mhm.
and that is a play.
A play.
Because I haven't written a play for quite some time, so this is a play in 2 acts.
Mm-hmm.
I am struggling with that.
Okay.
Then I want to bring together a trilogy, sure, at least three stories,
Mm-hmm.
which are light and humorous. So
Okay.
I'm working on that also. And so far, one is done, and the ideas of two are playing in my mind.
Okay.
So
Okay.
let's see when.
You mean short fiction or
Yeah,
trilogy?
short fiction, short
Short fiction.
fiction,
Okay.
short
Okay.
fiction.
All right. All right.
So it's not a novel that I'm planning now, but a play which should be ready very soon.
And then
And
you've also
uh,
been doing a lot of you've also been doing a lot of painting also.
oh, yes, I'm doing a lot of painting. A lot of painting. I started learning only 6 months ago, and I have been painting a lot, really, almost every other day, and I love it.
Yeah.
So it's like if I'm not writing, I'm painting. And when you're retired, these are the best things to keep you going.
Absolutely, absolutely, ma'am. And it's undoubtedly an engaging read, and I just suggest it to most of our friends. Some of them, of course, have read this, I know, and others who are interested in, they can just, catch hold of this book and they can read it for themselves. Now, I'd like to just open it for questions or comments or observations
Let's
from the
invite responses. Let's invite
responses.
responses
Yeah,
because
yeah, you
I
could just
know quite a few
respond.
people have read the book, and if they're
Yeah,
not feeling shy, they can come up with their questions or
you
their
could
comments
share,
or
you could share
whatever
your
they'd like to
response. You
say.
could share
Yeah.
a
So
response. And in case you are interested to, ask a question, you could do that as well. Just feel free. Yes, it's open. Is there anyone?
mm,
Ishtiyaq?
Shruti,
Uh,
Ishtiyaq.
Yeah, Shruti Sharma. Hi, Shruti.
Hi, sir. Good evening. Good evening,
Hi.
ma'am.
Good evening.
Uh, First of all, congratulations to both of you. The entire discussion about the book, it has been highly interesting and engaging. And this is definitely going to be our next read for our book club. My question to you is, who do we meet in the novel other than Sanjhi Mai? Is it Professor Manju Jaidka, the academician, or Manju Jaidka, the writer, or if I may take the liberty, Manju, the woman? So can you really separate the three when you write, or do they work in tandem? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shruti. You'll have to read the book to understand, to find your own answers, but I can tell you that a lot of myself has gone into several characters. And those two main women characters, yes, a part of me goes in there because if you want to write convincingly, you have to get into them. You have to get into them, and whether you like it or not, they end up voicing some of your own thoughts. This always happens. And in fact, one of the reviewers told me that it is all about you. I can hear you talking. Whenever the women start talking, I can hear your voice. Well, if my voice is discernible in the characters, I don't know if it's a success or not, but people have appreciated the book. And I'm told that it is a very quick read. I like to keep my writing conversational. I don't like, just as I don't like to read something that is slow and boring, I feel that readers also would like something that is, that goes fast, that is readable, which does not slow them down, which they can, which is unput downable. So that is my intention. And if I succeed, it's for you to tell me. So if you read the book and you can get back to me and tell me where you find me there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I would definitely do
But
that.
thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Anybody
Yeah, hi,
else?
Roshan. May
Yeah.
I just
Yeah, sure. Please, Manpreet, please.
okay? So, well, taking on from the conversation just now, ma'am, about you being there in most of the characters in this novel, I would say that that's what usually that happens in the first novel of a writer. They say that you're there, and that's why many writers or singers are not able to go beyond one album or one book. Like Arundhati Roy. But it's amazing that you've written so many novels, and there is still so much which you're able to give. From your experiences to your characters. So I think that's, I don't know, is it a different way you write, or there are so many different facets, in one a person that you're able to, there's so many different characters you're able to kind of carve out of your experiences. I think that's really incredible. In addition to, of course, I always marvel at how you're able to write book after book, whereas some of us would just struggle with maybe even one or not do that. So it's really very motivating.
Manpreet, you need to have time. You need to be retired so that you can write book after book and get after other people also to write book after book.
Yeah.
No,
And
ma'am,
yes,
but you were always writing. You were writing when you were very busy.
yeah, but sometimes it's an obsession. You feel you just have to do something. And it's a good way to keep yourself busy. If you feel that all my books are about me, I don't know. There are so many other characters also. And if you start writing seriously, Manpreet, I'm sure you will introspect and realize that you are not a single person, but you have different facets, and you would like to bring out all those facets of your personality in different ways. It is a very fulfilling exercise because you can be nasty, you can be nice, you can be romantic. In fiction, you can do that and get away with it. And sometimes even as male characters. And yes, one of the stories that I'm thinking of is about an experience that I had, but I'm going to flip the gender and make it a man who's had my kind of experiences and made a total ass of himself.
That's really interesting.
I
Interesting
mean,
to know.
ma'am, that's possibly your authorial prerogative to say that one can get away with it, but there's hardly any getting away with the written word, which is in your name, which you own actually. So,
Roshan,
yeah,
the the blessed do not care what angle they are regarded from. They have nothing to hide.
yeah,
Auden.
brilliant. That's
As long as you're
brilliant.
not harming anyone, as long
Yeah.
as you're not going against the law, as long as nobody gets offended at what you write,
Hmm.
it's all fair, I think.
Yeah.
In fact, even J.M. Coetzee, even John
Mhm.
Coetzee said the same thing. When I told him, I said, this was, let me see, in 1991, 92, when
Mhm. Hmm.
I was writing, but I was not confident enough.
Okay.
And I said, how can you write stories about other people because you feel you're betraying them? He said, no, just change the names and change the events here and there. So it's perfectly all right. So
Yeah.
when J.M. Coetzee says that, and you
Hmm.
know that he's one of the top writers of the world,
Hmm.
and when the other writers that we have been working on in our two encyclopedias, they
Yeah.
all bring themselves in, they bring their personal experiences, then why should you feel apologetic about it? This is what
Hmm.
I've gone through, this is what I feel, and this is what I present. You like it? Thank you very much. You don't like it? Too bad. I've said what I wanted to say.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely, and that's why what I intended conveying was one that every single character is anything that you write actually is a type, and that type is represented, in different ways, of course, and it's not just that's the reason that there is always that carryover. One
sometimes they
character,
become
yeah,
caricatures. Sometimes they
yeah,
become caricatures.
true,
But then there are characters. For instance, Bastar in this book is a caricature.
yeah, exactly,
But there are characters like that. And he is actually
absolutely,
based on a character that we had on the campus, who
absolutely.
used to try flirting around with the girls and so on. And I've always felt that there was something crooked about him. I did
Mhm.
not know what was crooked about him. I never got down to to his history, but then I just built it up. I built a story around him.
Mm. Yes. So fiction that way offers that space, and
Mhm.
an author has certain, he has that capacity, he has that, he has the capability to bring that world alive, of course. That's how fictional universes come into being, and you have created 5 fictional universes successfully thus far, and we hope there are several more to come. But is there any other response, anyone, who would like to possibly share?
Uh,
Ishtiaq,
yes, sir.
yeah,
Can I? Yeah.
sure, sure.
I, I I did not read the book, so I was just reserving my comments for later. But I was just thinking, there are a lot of elements of magic realism here, the fantastical elements, the involvement of mythology,
Yeah.
and could you comment on that a bit, ma'am? Was Amitav Ghosh by any chance an inspiration for you, like
No,
while
I
writing
don't
this, or
like
not at all?
Amitabh Ghosh. I don't like
Okay.
Amitabh Ghosh. I do like
Uh,
Salman Rushdie. I like Salman Rushdie,
uh-huh.
and I think somewhere or the other he has influenced me, at least in the early stages of my writing. But Ishtiaq, if you look around yourself, there are so many things that happen in the world which you cannot really explain. So there is magic realism all around us.
Hmm.
And then when you tell a story, and there are certain things that you cannot really show as logical. You can't really show them happening, and there's something strange. Then you make use of the supernatural, you make use of magic realism. So this happens in real life also. If we if we have an experience that breaks us, how do we console ourselves? We console ourselves with stories like, maybe in my last karam, my last birth, I must have done something like that. Or we say that if we've lost somebody, iska to karja utarna tha, aa gaya. So we create these stories. It doesn't have anything scientific as such. It may not have anything scientific as such. But then, as Shakespeare said, there are more things in heaven and earth than is dreamt of in your philosophy. And this is what I really believe in.
Ma'am, I'd like to bring in Rushdie here, because I think in one of his interviews, what he says is that a writer, he cannot stay complacent. He has to push himself, beyond the edge, he says. So something which otherwise seems inexplicable, indescribable, the writer engages with that to the maximum possible extent and then brings it out. And I think the piece that I read about, from Sanjhi Giri, from the prologue, the very opening paragraph, I mean, it speaks volumes about that kind of felicity, which is very deceptive. Let me tell you, on the surface, it appears, oh, it flows like water, but there is a very different, I think, degree of profundity therein, and it kind of it makes you, stop for a while and go back to it again. That's that's something which is, and
You know,
that's what is different about a
many
piece.
years ago, many years
Yeah,
ago, when Golding had received, William Golding had received his Nobel Prize, I think it
Nobel.
was in the 1980s, probably in the 1980s or so. I read all his books. And in one of them, he's talking about prehistoric human beings. Not human beings, but prehistoric characters who have no language. But there is a story built around them. And there are certain things they cannot express. And the atmosphere that he has created there, for that matter, even in The Lord of the Flies, the atmosphere that he creates, that atmosphere is almost palpable. You can almost cut it with a knife, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there's something happening and it's all over. You can smell it, but you don't know what it is. That is the kind of feeling I wanted to recreate. These are powerful literary works that leave an impression on your mind. And when you start writing, somehow they emerge in your writing too.
True. Right, ma'am. Yeah. Anyone else, please? Yes, Debarati.
Yes.
Thank you,
Ma'am.
Debarati.
Yes, ma'am. I was listening to everything I was actually mesmerized. And what I kept on thinking of was the way in which you have related to nature in such a wonderful manner. And it's not as if nature is something different outside. It's a part of life, and you have made that so palpable. That's one. The other thing is, from that angle, I was just thinking of how, yeah, I just have to write something about your work in terms of spiritual ecofeminism. So that is a project I promise to you I will undertake
Thank you so
as soon
much.
as
Thank you so
possible.
much. I would be so
Yes, ma'am.
honored. I'd be so honored,
And
delighted.
the other thing is that I never knew, but when you actually experienced the forest fire, I think just after that I was speaking to you over the phone, and you did your voice was able to convey that from a very long distance. I could understand what was going on inside you, possibly. And but I never knew that you were a stoic. uh, I mean, yes, you are this iron lady, I know, but stoicism, that is looking at the world with such tranquility, is something that I didn't know about earlier. So thank you for opening my eyes about this aspect of life as well.
It's
Thank you,
very
ma'am.
kind, Debarati. I'm so grateful for your insight. And yes, what you say is very true. The forest fire was indeed something that gives me nightmares even now. But the hill people take it in their stride. They say, oh, it happens every year. It was really one experience that I cannot forget.
This collection of poems, ma'am, which is both in English as well as Hindi, is a world in flames.
The
Sulagta Sansar. Actually, this
Sulagta
world
Sansar.
in flames. Yeah. This Devarati actually it's a wonderful read, and I think the point that you made about eco spiritual
Spiritual
aspect,
ecofeminism, yes.
spiritual eco, yes, that's powerfully there, and the legend offers, yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, I think you'll have a lot to write about. I'm quite sure about it. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, please, anyone else?
Otherwise, back to Ishtiaq.
Yeah, otherwise it's going to be back to Ishtiaq. If anyone wants to share or his
Okay.
right,
So
Ishtiaq.
yes, if
Thank
there's
you.
no more
Thank you.
question. So I think we can end this session now. I'm really grateful for ma'am and sir for this wonderful session. Thank you so much, sir, for moderating this. And we would always love to hear more about ma'am's new and upcoming works. For the next session, we'll let you know. It should be in 2 weeks in 2 weeks, obviously, as we follow our usual schedule of fortnightly meetings for the 26th session, that is. And I guess this is it. We'll see you in the next session then. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and good night.
Thank you, Ishtiaq. Thank you, Roshan.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you,
for pointing
everyone.
out that this is the Silver Jubilee session. That
Yeah,
makes
it's the
me
Silver
feel good.
Jubilee
Yeah,
session.
yeah. Thank you.
Congratulations
And
and thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So would the others like to come on and show their faces on the screen before we say bye? Bhakti has switched on her video, but we cannot see her.
Hey, Milan, I can see you. Hi. Milan, I can see you. It's one of my students from Masters.
Okay. I haven't met him, I think.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. And I'll share the
Thanks a
recording.
lot.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.